What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Uncaged podcast. If you know, this channel is all about the journey to the top 1%. And how do we get there? It's by becoming 1% better daily. Now, today I wanted to talk about something that's actually quite insane for me to think about and verbalize, but I understand how important it is. I have seen about 1,000 people get fucked out of close to about $7 to $10 million of their active income. And I wanted to talk about what I learned through having a front row seat and seeing all this come to play. There's two main lessons here that I have seen. A, understanding industries and the way they operate, especially the whales of the industry. And then next is vetting people in a very specific way, like trusting but verifying. So the first thing I want to talk about, and I don't actually know legally how much I can describe this organization, but our marketing agency, for those of you who don't know, we used to run a very successful marketing agency. That's what my career has been in for 18, 19 years at the time of this recording, is sales and marketing. It's something that I know very, very well. It's something that I would like to say I am very good at. And throughout this process, we started to attract a lot of service providers for the results that we were seeing. Well, one of the big waves that came through, just really the world, but more specifically like the coaching, the consulting, the done for you, passive investing space, was where you could find a service provider that knew how to, I don't want to say take advantage of or manipulate, but could create the opportunity to sell products through a larger website that had the foot traffic that you needed. And so what would happen is you would come in and you would invest money into this service provider. And really what you're doing there is you are buying their softwares that they have either, hopefully what would have happened is they have vetted these softwares, they have learned these softwares, they have created like an expert relationship between their organization and the software providers, as well as this main organization. And they have spent time learning how to do things correctly, how to follow trends, how to even build their own developments that would see what products to buy, what time to buy them, like when they were low, and then when to sell them when prices were high, and everything in between. The more experienced service providers also offered you the opportunity to store specific products in their warehouses and help. Basically, it was a done-for-you service, sold and marketed as an investment strategy. Well, the biggest lesson that we have learned here, and I'm going to kind of break down the conversation I had in the gym yesterday and why something like this I just feel like we need to provide awareness for anything else that comes next, is throughout this process, it worked really, really well in the beginning. And as this service was highly profitable and produced a massive ROI, especially for the investors initially, but also obviously the service providers, things started to change. Pivots started to happening, and people in general were spending time, money, resources, eyeballs, and attention on this main organization. And through this, the main organization is ran like a business. Like it or hate it, the thing that I do not appreciate is the way it is marketed to providing an opportunity for the... Again, I'm trying to think of terminology I can use without getting into legal trouble with the big dog, but they market themselves as being able to help out the little guy. Like they have the back-end resources as well as the front-end softwares that the small guy needs to be able to get their products out there and to people in a timely fashion, if you will. And through this process, the big company pivoted the way that they operated And it has gotten to the point where, as a business, it makes sense for them, but being marketed towards, let's just say that there's a broken link in between the way it is marketed. And part of that is, if you were to go onto this platform, and again, I can't use certain terminology, but if you were to search for, let's call it generic products. If you were to search, their name and then, a different term for generic products, you would see a whole list of these products come available for you to purchase at an incredibly affordable rate. And the thing is though all of those products, all of those generic products used to be the little guy's invention or the little guy's, profitable arena. And what was happening is the big company allows all the little guys to do their R&D for them. You spend your money investing to figure out what works. You spending your money to figure out how to advertise it correctly. You spend your money in development. You spend your money in all the processes it takes, from taking a product from an idea to putting it on a platform and getting it into a consumer's hand. All that time times all the millions and millions and millions of different products that are going out there, they allowed those small business owners to do the R&D for them. And once they found something that worked correctly and sold for a profit, they would then come, and they have, again, can't say too much, they've got more resources than you do. They have larger budgets than you do. They have all the logistics completed. They own the advertisement platform. So they had all the balls in their court. They were just letting small businesses go out there and see what worked and what didn't work. And they owned the data so that they could come in and objectively figure out what would benefit them the most. Again, as a business, that sounds like a very, very successful strategy. However, that started to affect all the little guys. Costs went up, prices went up, purchases went down, this, that, whatever. Well, then we rewind back to the service providers that sold this little guy storefront to consumers to purchase an investment vehicle. And some of these people, unfortunately, invested their last dollar into something like this that was as hostile and volatile as is letting someone with much larger resources and money than you, showing them what works. Anyways, the industry as a whole pivoted. And when it did, people were not prepared. Now, I have seen people on the platform be very, very successful in their investments, and I've seen a lot completely crash and burn. And I personally, or my agency, was directly attached to two of those service providers where we literally in lifetime over a 3-year period, saw the entire market shift. And during that shift, I mean, the whale company just left so much destruction in its past. And so part of this that we have learned through this was being observant on how much data, what all balls of yours you leave in someone else's court. And this could apply over many, many different industries. One of which, again, is another massive, massive organization that a lot of us, and you probably ended up finding this video because of one of these platforms. That is where all the data is shared. That is where eyeballs and attention are. And they own that information and they own that data. And there are so many organizations that are now so handcuffed to that platform that if something were to go wrong to it, that organization is now done for. And again, without saying too much, a prime example is that platform itself went down for about 36 hours not too long ago at the time of this recording, and it left a bunch of people freaking out. How do we communicate with our customers? How do we, approach our consumers? Where do we find prospects? It really put people into a tailspin of understanding, or at least I hope it did, and brought awareness into realizing that your entire organization is built on a platform that can change whenever it so chooses, and they have all the balls in their court. So when it comes to you and whatever organization you have, whatever industry that you're in, whether you're a business owner or whether you have a W-2 or whatever the case is, be very cautious of these golden handcuffs, because as we have seen, these big guys aren't your friends. They are businesses, and they are ran by businesses, and businesses have selfish tendencies, and they're always looking out for their own bottom line. And, I hate to say all this in that specific light, because a lot of them are necessary evils, but you have to protect yourself and not be so jaded and gullible to understand that you need to have these safety precautions in place so that when the industry pivots or when the large company decides that there is something else out there that is better suited for them, you're prepared. So what are you doing to protect your job? What are you doing to protect your organization? What are you doing to protect your finances? Okay? And then the next part of it is we have been involved with some service providers that just aren't who they said they were. And we, they take up about $1.5 million or so of that 7 to 10 million. That other, remaining whatever that is, 6.5, 7 million, about 6.5 million was broken up over a few other service providers. One of those service providers was close to 500 or 600 clients for probably 3 or 4 million. The other was probably like 100 to 200 clients, about $1 million, $1.5 million potentially. And then this one about $1 million, $1.5 million, with about 250 service providers, where it was just people and all of this from the top to the bottom. The lesson here is trusting but verifying. And so what I mean by that is, we got involved with this service provider due to someone at the time that I, massively looked up to and trusted, but it was blind faith. It was trust without the verification, which is why in Uncaged, Uncaged is all about the community. It is all about the collective power of the group. It's about surrounding yourself with like-minded men. It is about the law of averages. None of us are smarter than all of us. None of us are more powerful than all of us. That, we truly believe in the community. It's not about me. It's about the power of the community and the checks and balances that having a community like that creates. Now, however, I happen to be the person that just raised their hand and said, "Hey, we're fucking doing this, guys." And so that's my involvement here, right? At current pace, I am the one that has final say so, but I do my best to take everything inside the organization to a vote and really allow the members to steer the ship. So we're creating checks and balances there, but even just the conviction that I have in being, at current pace again, the guy that is on the camera, is I want people to know, don't fucking trust my word with blind faith. Anyone that I recommend, I will directly have had an involvement and an exchange with, that I can show you exactly how they have helped Uncaged get from where they are to where we are now. So but I want you to do your own verification. I want you to do your own R&D. Unfortunately, I have been burned, which has led to a couple of hundred other people getting burned because of blind faith. And I don't care how much you believe in that person or you want to see the good in them, they are humans too, and they are just one person. So is ways for people to get into their head and get into their organization and to earn their trust, albeit built on lies and deceit and just evil, but it does happen. Now, not going to go into my situation specifically, but I do want to fall on the sword and say that, like, I did not verify. I trusted, but I didn't verify. And throughout this process, it allowed us to create a relationship built on lies, if you will. And granted, that only lasted for about 11 weeks before we caught on to what was going on. But in that time, it allowed, 200, 300 people to get hurt by this and end up losing, $1.2 million or whatever the final number was. And so through that part, the learning lesson there that, like, if I can't say anything else, we have to trust but verify. We have to create a due diligence process for ourselves that works for us, but that protects us, protects our loved ones, protects our investments, protects our time, protects our energy, and protects everything that makes us who we are today. Because if you're in Uncaged, you've heard me talk about this before. If you're in VIP, you for sure have on the roundtable calls and the expert calls. And if you're even in the free group and gone through the 30-day challenge, all of this ties in together with who you are and how you operate and the lessons that you've learned. And again, I believe that we can learn something from anyone and everyone. A lot of it might be what not to do, which is a big part of why I wanted to bring this episode specifically to you guys, is because I see a lot of people out there on social media that are always talking about the successes that they've had and hiding valuable information like this in the past because it is directly attached to something that burned them pretty significantly. And therefore they believe that if they, show you what's going on behind closed doors and they become vocal about some of the mistakes that they've made, that you will think lesser of them, or that it discredits who they are, or it affects their authority in the industry. Whereas in my opinion, like, more people can relate to your losses than your successes. So like for us, like, we've all been burned before. We've all made mistakes, and we've all been lied to, cheated on, and fucked over. And so for us, I would like to normalize the communication about that so that it protects someone else making the same mistakes or going down that same path, that comes after you. And so for me, throughout this process, one of the big reasons I wanted to have this conversation is, we had one of the guys in the VIP group that was being approached by a service provider that he is a strategic partner with, wanting to do a merger and wanting to control their, brand and the services that are provided under their, their marketing and their sales. And there was this information that we have learned, and that I learned, from the marketing agency, and now applying it to lessons that I get to help people with inside of Uncaged is understanding that, is like understanding that industries can be volatile. And so making sure that you have strategies in place to protect the volatility. But not only that, when this Goliath goes down, that there are safeguards in place, and there's plan Bs and there's strategies so that not all your balls are in one court, but then also trusting but verifying and making sure that you're aware of everything, because unfortunately, there's people out there that do want to take advantage of you. One of the biggest mistakes that I made throughout this entire process is I do love branding so much, as it ties in so well with like sales and marketing, that, branding was a very huge focus of mine, where our logos were slapped across, anything you can think of, because we wanted to get awareness out there about what we were doing and how we were helping and the things that we were going on. But we were allowing the desire for that to basically blind us from some of the opportunities that approached that were less than stellar and that did have bad intentions behind them and that were not set up for success for, the investors or the prospects or, what the consumers. And so I want to bring awareness to this stuff because I care about you and I don't want anyone to go through, some of the learning lessons that we've had to go through. And I'd be more than happy to have this conversation with anyone if you want to go deeper into how to protect yourself from stuff like this. Now, I'm not an attorney or anything like that. What your attorney says is what goes, but literally I just want to share my story on what we learned throughout this process so that you don't make the same mistakes that we did because, again, we got hurt very, very badly by it. People that we cared about got hurt very, very, very badly about it. And moving forward, there's nothing we can do about that but bringing awareness to this moving forward, controlling the present that does affect the future. So when it comes to this process, I don't care what you're doing. I don't care who you're with. I don't care what partnership you're approaching. And again, this can apply to you if you're a W-2 or 1099, as well as if you are an entrepreneur, solopreneur, whatever the case is. It's protecting you and protecting your name and protecting what you promise and then being able to assure that you can fulfill that. Now, when it comes to a partnership like what was explained or discussed in the VIP group chat was don't ever allow someone else to make promises that you have to deliver on, as well as don't ever make promises for someone else when they have to deliver them. Do not ever make promises for people that control the deliverables. Because when you start to do that, you now then open yourself up for people to point fingers at you. You then put a target on your back. And ask me how I know this. We're going to take a couple of old fashions and a cigar to sit around a campfire and have this conversation. But it can break you if you're not careful. So I need you to be very, very mindful of putting all your balls in someone else's court. I need you to be very, very mindful about the R&D and the due diligence that you put behind stuff and trusting but verifying anything and everything that you do when it comes to putting your name and your logo on things and then not making promises for deliverables by someone else. Because I promise you, the house always wins. Someone else is always more worried about what they can get out of the situation than what you can. And I need you to be very, very careful when it comes to creating partnerships without having, strong enough operating agreements. We've got guys in VIP that can help write, the operating agreements. We got guys that can help make sure that you're protected, whether that's setting up your organization a certain way, whether that's looking over certain documents that you already have created, whatever the case is. I need you just to be fully aware of all the threats that could come at you when you don't understand a couple of these things. Again, I'm not an expert at this stuff. I've just unfortunately been burned a few times, and this is the lessons that I've learned from it. I'm not perfect. I probably should have picked up on a couple more lessons. I probably should have learned the lessons sooner than I did. But here we are. So I hope that this episode helped. I hope you got something out of it. If it did, please let me know because I'm interested in hearing what you've learned so that we can start to create this atmosphere and this ecosystem of people sharing the lessons that they learned so that we can all grow together because a rising tide lifts all boats. So thank you so much. If you got something out of this, please give it a share. And if not, we'll see you inside the Uncaged free group.